currently you're associated with Magic Softwares as the chairman. So how did Magic happen?
So, when we sold Headstrong, I moved out pretty much immediately. But a lot of my team stayed on for their 2-year lock-in or whatever they had. And after 2 years, most of them left. And they all sat down and said, hey, what do we do? And so we discussed a number of things. And finally, they decided that they wanted to start a fund, a small fund, based on the money that they had made. And it's a little different in the sense that they didn't want to only invest, but they wanted to actually get involved in helping run the company. Right. Now, Magic had been around for a while. I think Vimlendu Verma, who had founded it, had been there for about 20 plus years, 25 years. And he unfortunately got early onset of Alzheimer's or one of those diseases at a young age. And because he was from Doon, and Sandeep Sahai and I are both from Doon, we sort of knew him. And he talked to us and said, look, he wants to take a less active role in the company, maybe even leave it completely. But he was looking for someone to take it over. And at that time, we were looking for something to do. And education, although it was a completely new area for us, seemed like an exciting area. And I had decided after we sold Headstrong that the only thing I know is technology. So I wanted to focus on trying to leverage technology to provide better outcomes for the economically handicapped in healthcare and education.
Right.
This sort of fitted in with the theme. And so we ended up buying the company from Vimlendu, and then restructuring it in the sense changing the direction. It was mainly a content company when we took it over, and we moved it into engineering and said, let's go a little more upmarket, so to say, in terms of the services we offer. And our experience in Headstrong had been, what we call domain. That means in investment banking, which was our focus area, capital markets. We were end-to-end in the sense, well, not really, we didn't do BPO, but we pretty much did consulting to IT services, right? And that identified us, made us unique in that marketplace. We were able to compete with the TCSs, the Wipros, the HCLs of the world, although we were a much smaller company. We thought, let's build a similar model in education here at Magic. And that's really what we're doing, partly done, some part is still to be done. And that's really what Aki has taken over as the CEO, and that's what he's trying to build at Magic.
Right. So you've been a veteran, in the IT industry and been there for so long. So what are your predictions when it comes to the future of EdTech? Where do you see EdTech, say next 5 years or 10 years down the line?
So try and look at what, the answer 2-3 years ago would have been different. After the pandemic, it is a little different. So what the pandemic has done, it has made everyone comfortable with remote learning.
Right.
Much more comfortable.
Right.
There's still people objecting to it and wanting to change it, but it's here to stay. I think we all can agree on that. Now look at what remote learning is going to do. So one thing is the smaller universities and colleges might have a problem, because there's no reason why an IIT or an MIT or a Harvard can't have millions of students.
I know.
And they can get that brand. Right. So people would be willing to pay, and so that's one thing. So that got to keep that in mind on how it's going to impact if it happens. The second thing is, if we assume people are going to work more from home, students are going to study more from home. Homes are going to need to be bigger, because now the student needs a desk and a study area.
Right.
And we are seeing that at lots of places. And so it's going to impact homes, right? Because you're going to want a bigger home.
Correct.
Third thing is, if you look at content that has to go online for teaching, why can't a professor in India do as good a job as a professor in the US? Right. So, like software writing came overseas, I would assume at some stage, not just school content, but college content writing for online learning will also come overseas. So, it is now going to impact my academics in India, which are already in short supply, for example, are going to make more money doing this than teaching. And so you're going to see that impact. So just look at how all these things are going to impact not just directly education, but things around it. Right. So I think if you look at it, we've got to think of how to plan for this. I also believe that when you look at bandwidth, we have to, in our mind, in the future, think of it as pervasive, infinite, and free. And then look at what your model is going to be in that environment. Right. Now, I might be wrong in my timing, and I have been wrong in the past in timing. When we started Headstrong, we thought in 10 years, it'll become domain specific rather than, labor arbitrage. I was wrong. It's now 20 years since we started Headstrong, and we're now starting to see that movement happen to go domain specific. Everyone's talking about leveraging assets or domain or whatever. So I think while I could be wrong on my timing, I think that's the way education is going to go in the future.
All right. So, recently we have seen a little slump in terms of EdTech, particularly in Indian market. So do you think that's just something which is like a temporary thing which has come up, or do you think, the world will follow that way? How do you see Indian EdTech market and the world market? Will it sort of affect each other?
Yeah, there is a correlation. I mean, to some extent, but but look at what the thinking is today in India. The government feels that rural kids have got left behind during the pandemic.
Right.
They didn't have the smart devices or whatever. And so they estimate, and I quote their numbers, that they need 100 million tablets for rural youth to enable them to catch up over the next few years.
Okay.
Right. Now, their numbers. I'm not, I think it's a huge number, but it is going to happen. People are going to catch up. And if you're seeing a kind of a slowdown of some kind, it's because a lot of people have switched to homeschooling, if I use that term, or kind of homeschooling or getting tutors. And then they feel, why do I need to go to school? I'm learning more this way. Schools, in any case, get closed half the time. Now we're already talking of some level of pandemic worry about the new variants coming out or whatever is happening in China and stuff. India's put restrictions on 6 countries already, and that affects schools. So a lot of people are doing it from home. And so you see the EdTech companies. At one stage, there were a whole lot of unicorns that came out of EdTech.
Right.
Obviously, things have cooled off for them. But it's cooled off only because people are getting a little more rational and have other options right now.
Right. What are the key EdTech or tech innovations, that we should watch for in 2023?
So what I think is driving it is how kids want to learn. Now, I have 2 grandkids, and both of them want to learn differently. My grandson wants to learn with Star Wars characters as part of his, video that he wants to see.
Right.
My granddaughter wants to learn with Disney characters, mermaids and stuff like that. Right. Now I have to do, technically, if I was a content publisher, I would have to do the same content with different figures, so to say.
Right.
So you're going to have to then pay developers, not double, but more than 1x to do the content the way you want. And I'm only giving 2 alternatives. There could be 7 or 8, depending on, maybe people in Scandinavia want Asterix characters. Maybe people in India want Chandamama characters.
Right.
Someone wants Mahabharata characters. So you've got to redo that content. And I think that's going to become really, really big.
So it's about personalization.
Children are going to dictate. Okay. In fact, what's happening in the US today is that parents and students want digital content. Teachers are not yet trained and ready and comfortable. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of new content for teachers coming out to make them comfortable so that they can work with kids and their parents who are both comfortable with. So, you're going through that transition. And industries like education, like medicine, like publishing, which have sort of stayed away from technology for so long, but were forced into it because of the pandemic, are seeing this drastic change happen in a much shorter time frame than they would have liked.
Right.
And so it's part of the problem is also senior people in those organizations, not all, but a lot of them are not comfortable with technology.
Correct.
It's pretty much trying to get your grandmother or your mother to get into email and WhatsApp and stuff. I mean, once they get it, they are probably the most active on it. But to get them onto it and, help them solve problems they have on their laptops or computers, whatever you have with them, becomes a little bit of an issue. I think that's exactly what's happening in some of these industries where technology didn't really make major impact till the pandemic forced them to move at a very different. But like I've always said, if you look at the petrol or diesel cars, they are very complicated machines. But no one is scared of opening the bonnet and looking in there to see if they can repair it or fix it. Right. But catch anyone opening a computer and looking at it.
Oh, no.
Right. Whereas I think the computers are much more simpler device. Yeah. But so it's just that fear of technology that has to be overcome.
Right.
And look, kids today are my grandkids, we didn't give them pacifiers, we gave them tablets. And those were their pacifiers, which I think in hindsight was not such a great idea, but it worked. And so they are much more familiar with, like, even today, if I want some stuff done on my phone, I ask my son or my grandkids, they'll tell you how to upgrade it to 5G and stuff like that. And they're it's like when VCRs came out, we were much more comfortable than our parents on how to program VCRs. So that's life.
Right. So we've talked about EdTech, we've talked about Magic. So now, where do you see Magic, particularly Magic EdTech, going in next 5-10 years? I mean, and do we see any new innovations there?
Yeah, sure. There are lots of stuff going on in Magic, especially in the Magic Box area, where we are adding, and plus we are also doing a lot more we are not a product company in the sense, other than Magic Box. We are mainly a services company. So we have a lot of assets that we develop internally, a lot of IP, I call them assets, that we leverage to do faster, quicker, better consulting support to our, to our customers. And so that's where I think Magic I think what I would like Magic to be is definitely get to that 100 million and more over time. I mean, right now the number is 100, but as we get closer to it, I'm pretty sure we'll change that to a different number. But I want them to be seen as leaders in this field. I want people, when they think of technology in EdTech or in education technology, when they think of a company, that Magic should be top of the mind. That's really where I want it. We're not there today. We're getting there slowly. I think on accessibility, we pretty much have top of mind recall with a lot of the large customers. I really want that on everything else. Our consulting group is starting to give us that visibility.
Okay.
They are growing a lot better and quicker than I had anticipated, which is really good, which means that, we are being seen more as advisors and not just implementers, which will differentiate us from a lot of our